morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, very, very dramatic developments now in the war with Iran. The Ayatollahs now are in serious, serious trouble. The regime now is on the brink of potential defeat and collapse. So here is now the absolute latest. As I speak to you now, after another day of relentless bombing and missile attacks by both Israel and the United States, Iran's air defenses have been absolutely demolished, systematically dismantled, degraded, demolished. Iran's navy, much of it now sits at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. It took decades for Iran to build up a navy in order to project power. It is now gone in 4 days of war. Furthermore, and this is the part now that really is showing the weakness of the Iranian regime, apparently now both Israel and the United States have complete air superiority, air dominance. They have now basically completely taken over the skies over all of Iran. They are now pounding the Iranians, hitting every single key military, nuclear, political target you can think of around the clock. It is systematic carpet bombing. The Iranians now are lashing out desperately, like a chicken without a head. And I'm going to get to this a little bit later in the show. Obviously now they're losing their command and control. They are now launching furiously drone attacks, missile attacks. Most of them are missing. They're not hitting their targets, far from it. The few that do get through are the air defenses that we have protecting the Gulf nations. Iran's neighbors are hitting parking lots, or they're hitting civilian areas, or they're hitting hotels. And all they're doing is alienating and enraging Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain. I could run down the whole list. The entire Gulf is now unifying against them. Hell, they attacked our consulate in Dubai. And how did they do this? The idiots launched an attack that landed in the freaking parking lot. I mean, it's not even that it's killing American personnel. And don't get me wrong, I'm so happy about that. But it shows you how weak and ineffective the Iranian counterattack has been. Now, this is even now the bigger development. Apparently now, the Israelis and, of course, our incredible men in our Air Force, men and women in our Air Force, we are not only degrading Iran's air defenses, have demolished them and their navy, but we have now destroyed much of their ballistic missile capability. Much of their hundreds of ballistic missiles have now been smashed and destroyed. And Iran now has fired so many of their own missiles that their stockpile is now down to about 40, maybe even 30%. So not only are their missiles missing their targets, not only are they swinging wildly and desperately and enraging and turning all of their neighbors against them, but they're literally running out of ammunition. They're running out of naval ships. They're running out of ballistic missiles. They have no more. Their fighter jets now, almost every fighter jet in the Iranian Air Force has now been taken out. Their air defenses, as I said, have been utterly obliterated. Iran now is basically, I don't want to get overconfident, but Iran now is almost defenseless. Now, they still have a few aces up their sleeve. I don't want to be, as I said, get ahead of get over my skis and get ahead of myself. But as I speak to you now, as President Trump revealed yesterday, it's not just that they're running out of missiles and that we've destroyed so many of their missiles, but we have now destroyed many of their missile launchers. So they have few missiles left, and they're losing the capability to even fire what's left or remaining of their dwindling and diminishing stockpile. So What this means effectively is that the regime militarily is now completely on the ropes. They are being shredded. They are being eviscerated. They are being torn apart. And on top of this, their command and control is now starting to break down. And this is what many experts are now saying, both Israeli and U.S., including obviously our chief of the men of our chiefs who are in our chief of staff, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, are saying the reason why you are watching these wild missile attacks that are missing, that make almost no sense. You know, lobbing missiles into Saudi Arabia or lobbing missiles into Kuwait or Dubai. It's almost as if the regime has been decapitated, and now they gave out instructions before the bombing campaign. Okay, should the supreme leader be taken out, we want you to target this country, and then you target this country. In other words, orders given to the military. And they're just blindly, almost stupidly, just saying, okay, let's attack Bahrain, throw a missile somewhere. Let's attack the UAE. Go ahead, just launch a missile somewhere. You're starting to see now the beginnings of the collapse of their entire command and control structure. As I speak to you now, and please listen to this very carefully, because this is what we've done, the United States and Israel, in a spectacular military operation so far. This, I don't want to jump the gun, but this could be one of the greatest military operations in human history. It's not over yet, so I don't want to, again, I don't want to be premature. Iran is now deaf, blind, and dumb. Their telecommunication system has also been knocked out. They cannot communicate with each other. The military cannot communicate with the political leadership. The religious leadership cannot communicate with the political or the military leadership. They are now flailing. On top of all of this, President Trump yesterday, and I made this point on X, this could be a fundamental game changer. Rather than have U.S. commit our boots on the ground, President Trump now said yesterday that he is seriously considering arming the internal opposition within Iran, sending them weapons, training, intelligence, and then have the Iranians, the Iranian opposition, the Iranian people overthrow the mullahs from the inside. Don't impose someone from the outside. Have them take over the government and topple the ayatollahs from the inside. And in particular, look out now for the Kurds. The Kurds, there is a significant minority of Kurds within Iran. By the way, many people don't know this. About half the population of Iran, give or take, is non-Persian. It's half Persian, but the other half is non-Persian. It consists of minorities like the Kurds, or like the Azeris, or like the Alawites, or there are others, other minorities, the Pashtun. So these groups despise Tehran, despise the Ayatollahs, have felt oppressed by them going back 50 years. They are potentially ready to revolt and lead a military insurgency against the mullahs. The Kurds in particular are itching to overthrow the rule of the mullahs. And what Israel and the United States have been doing, if you look at a map, Iran is adjacent to Iraq. Northern Iraq, as you know, is a Kurdish stronghold. They have basically an autonomous Kurdish entity. And they share a border with Iran. The western part of Iran is full of that Kurdish minority within Iran. Israel and the United States have been carpet bombing western Iran, taking out every military site possible, taking out every military base possible. It is almost as if they are paving a path for the Kurds to be able then to lead a military insurgency that will go straight into Tehran and take out the Ayatollahs. So, in plain English, if we arm the Kurds and other groups, but with the Kurds maybe taking the lead, we have the boots now on the ground for the final phase of the operation, the overthrow of the Ayatollahs, and hopefully a new pro-American government in Tehran. President Trump yesterday said that the remnants of the regime have reached out to him to talk. They are now willing to make a deal. Trump has now said the time for talk is over. You had your chance, you blew it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, a couple lines are still open. Once the lines are loaded, I want to go right to the calls. Let me ask all of you. I can't believe I'm even asking this question. And again, I don't want to be premature about this. But President Trump reiterated again yesterday. He goes, we're really ahead of schedule. We were looking at a 4 or 5 week war. It's going quicker than we could have ever imagined. You've got now some people that I respect anyway, who have a record of predicting these things that tends to be pretty accurate. They're saying this thing could be over in a week. Maybe not by the end of this week. That's a bit too optimistic, but maybe another week. In other words, by next week. In other words, we're looking at a 2-week campaign. I mean, it's incredible the speed by which the Iranians are just collapsing on every front. Now, I just want to make 2 other very important points that you need to be aware of, and then I want to go to the calls. 617-266-6868. Number one, President Trump was adamant yesterday that despite the fact that he's very well known, obviously a highly cultured, civilized man, Trump himself said, look, he's a very nice person. I've spoken to him, very, highly educated, erudite, learned, a patriot, loves Iran, the Iranian people, the son of the Shah, the crown prince. Trump says he's not our guy. He's not a big fan of having him come back to Iran or having us install him in power to replace the mullahs. He says the reason is he lacks enough popularity within Iran itself. There are still many Iranians, and look, the Shah was much better than the mullahs, okay, his father. For all of the father's flaws, believe me, it was infinitely better than what came after. However, to be fair, the father, the original Shah that was overthrown in 1979, ran a very brutal secret police. And he cracked down very, very hard on dissidents, on opponents, not just on Muslim fundamentalists, but even some of these non-Persian groups that now potentially we can arm as part of a broad-based insurgency there. And so he says, look, he's still a very divisive figure in Iran. Many people, even those that oppose the mullahs, have bad memories of the Shah. They don't like the idea of him being the crown prince again. And so President Trump is saying, he's not my guy. Nice man. I hope he returns to Iran. I hope he lives out his days very comfortably, but he's not the man to lead the transition to a new era. So Trump is putting cold water on the son of the Shah, the crown prince, being the person that we will pass the baton off in order to put in a new regime and a new political leadership in Iran. So just so that you know, he's still looking. Now, what he has clearly stated, and you tell me if you agree or disagree, is that he really wants the Venezuela model. He said he thinks it's worked very well in Venezuela. What is the Venezuela model? Decapitate the top leadership of a regime, but still keep enough of it intact So you don't have the kind of anarchy or chaos that you saw, say, in Iraq. So you look at Venezuela now, much of the Maduro regime is still there. His vice president is technically running the country. So you still have some stability in the government. You don't have an absolute free-for-all where opposition groups are fighting with the remnants of the regime. So he's looking for a successor, someone within the current mullah regime that could potentially more of a quote-unquote moderate who is willing to maybe work with the United States. He says the problem, and it was almost funny yesterday, is that he goes, well, we keep killing them, in bombing raid after bombing raid after bombing raid. So he says it's getting to the point now, I don't even know if we can find somebody from the current leadership because they're all dead. So he still says, I'm still looking for the right person to step in and, replace the Ayatollah and provide some stability so the country doesn't break apart. My question to you, how far should Trump go in terms of regime change? Should we try to handpick a successor? Or do you think ultimately this is going to have to be handled by the Iranian people themselves? Okay, I rarely do this. I always like to have a nice, fresh question for the audience, which, I think is a good way to start a nice discussion, and then have something a little separate for the poll question. But really, I think today's poll question is the question of the hour. And I can't believe I'm saying this within 4 days of war, which just tells you again just how brilliant and efficient and just well-trained and professional our military and the Israeli military are. I mean, it's just really, you got to, whatever you think of this, agree, disagree with the war, the conduct so far has been just absolutely incredible. When you combine our Air Force with Israel's Air Force, our technology with their technology, our military with their military, what they are displaying right now again, I don't want to jump the gun. It's still, nothing has been signed yet. It's not over. We're still in the middle of a war. But what we've seen in the first 4 days, this is going to go down as one of the most impressive military campaigns in human history. There's no question. And so my question to all of you, it is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Will the U.S. war, or to be more accurate, the U.S./Israel war with Iran, will it result in A, regime change? Meaning the Ayatollahs, the mullahs, the Islamic Republic that they created in 1917. Is that going to now be gone? Will it lead to regime change and the end of the mullahs and the Ayatollahs? Or B, something similar to Venezuela. Will there be a intact regime? In other words, will the mullahs manage to retain power? Obviously, Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader, is dead. Many of the leadership are dead. It's going to be a different regime, a much weakened regime. Again, like Venezuela, Maduro's people are still technically running the country, but the top guy is gone. The character of the government is different. In other words, will we see the mullahs somehow cling to power, obviously defanged, gutted, neutered, weakened, but still technically in control of the government? So A, full regime change. B, the mullahs somehow holding on to power in a weakened capacity. A, B, I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN as in national ER. You can also vote via X. And again, I was very active on X. my last night, talking specifically about now this plan to potentially arm the Kurds for an internal military insurgency to topple the regime. It's a huge development. We'll see what happens. But this, as I said, could be a fundamental game changer. Anyway, you can vote via X. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhn as in national ER. Vince in Deutschland, in Germany. You're going to kick us off, Vince. And as always, welcome.
Yes, Chef. Arm the Kurds. That's a great idea. You know who's going to love that is the Turks and Erdogan, our NATO ally. They'll love that because if you were to encompass Kurdistan, it would take most of eastern Turkey, all of northern Iraq, and a good portion of northwestern Persia. So, doesn't it seem like they're kind of just shooting from the hip with this thing? Like Israel's just like, whatever, we want to topple this government, regime change. You're either with us or you're without us. But we're just kind of like the tail being wagged by the dog. That's what I feel like, because why should the Kurds trust us anyway? Like after Desert Storm, we abandoned the Kurds, left them to Saddam's reign of terror up there. You know, he's gassed them, mustard gas. So there's trust issues. But what's interesting, I think what's most interesting is there's an article in the Daily Mail today talking about the IRGC. They've basically left the bases and they're out terrorizing the populace. The populace is hunkered down and they don't want to go out and oppose the government. They just don't want to get killed. And Trump is trying to create this external October revolution that nobody wants to participate in. You know what I mean? So where does that leave us? It leaves us with thugs and terrorists. That's what it leaves us with, Jeff, like Afghanistan. I mean, this thing is a boondoggle from the get-go, and I've decided anything that has Jared Kushner or Steve Witkoff's name on it, run away from it. Run the other way. What say you, Jeff?
Well, Vince, as you know, I've opposed this. You know, I oppose the war for many reasons, and one of my fears is that what you're talking about, that this could eventually lead, if we're not careful, to the breaking apart of Iran, to internal chaos, anarchy. I think that's the big fear now. Again, I can't stand the mullahs. I'm not defending the mullahs. Look, Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei is dead. Yes, he's an evil monster. Please, I'm not shedding tears over him. I'm happy he's dead, believe me. But the fact of the matter is, what comes next? See, that was always what the question I've been asking from the beginning. I said, you know, look, and I am impressed, I have to say. Vince, I want to ask you, I want to finish the answer, but I do want to ask you something, because you're a military man. Look, our military always performs magnificently. That's why I have so much pride and respect for everyone who serves in our military. When I say best of the best, I really mean that, best of the best. But even by our standards, this has been an immaculate, so far, operation. From just a technical military point of view. No, look, I always said, we're going to break the mullahs. Iran cannot stand up to the combined might of the United States and Israel. My fear always has been what happens next. And what Trump admitted to yesterday, and you can look up the press conference, he said, well, we're waiting for a successor. We don't have a successor plan. And so, you know, he was almost like openly bouncing ideas, saying, well, I don't like Pahlavi. I don't like the crown prince because he's not liked in Iran by a lot of people. I don't know some of the other people in the opposition. In fact, I can play you the cut. He said, you know, I don't want to get somebody that's just as bad as the Ayatollah or even worse. He goes, for me, that would be the worst case scenario. Then we've done this for what? So he openly said yesterday, I want to find somebody within the regime who is maybe more, and I put this in air quotes, moderate, meaning you'll submit, you'll sign away all of your nuclear enrichment, all of your nuclear program, all of your ballistic program, your missile program. You'll stop funding proxy terrorist groups around the Middle East, sign on the dotted line, and the regime can survive somehow, and, and you can move on. So he says, I'm looking for somebody who's not a crazy hardliner. The problem is they're all dying because we're just killing so many of them. And, we're starting to run out of people to look at. So he's even admitting, to his credit, he's being open about it. Unlike Venezuela, before we went in, we picked out Delcy Rodriguez, the VP, to be the successor. In other words, we looked at everybody in the regime and we said, well, who could take over from Maduro and basically manage it for us? And they said, Delcy Rodriguez. So say what you want about the Venezuela operation. We took out Maduro. It was clean, surgical. He's out. And the successor right away we had ready to go. There's no successor. And so what you're pointing out, where these roving bands of thugs and terrorists and paramilitary people and terrorizing the local population, and then the country begins to slowly just break and split apart because you have these non-Persian groups in different parts of the country. They start to slowly form their own militias. They start to break away. Then you have the recipe for a potential civil war. And by the way, that's why the Gulf states are so nervous about this. Because then you're going to have a massive refugee crisis. And that's going to pour over into those countries. And to be fair, that's what the Europeans are worried about. The Europeans, everyone says, oh, they're cowards, they're cowards. The Europeans, to be fair, are saying, hey, look, we've seen this movie before. When you guys overthrew Gaddafi in Libya, we got the Libyan refugees. When you overthrew Assad, we got the Syrian refugees. When we overthrew Saddam, we got a lot of the refugees from Iraq. So the Muslim refugees have poured into Europe. Some have come to us. And that's also my concern. If this thing breaks apart from the inside, how many Muslim refugees from Iran are we going to have to take in? So that's why I said it's easy to start a war. It's what happens next. And that's the one thing we're weak at. We don't think about the end game. Okay. Incredible developments really over the last 48, 72 hours, the last 24 hours in particular, militarily. The Iranian regime now is on the brink. There's no question. Iran's air defenses now have been obliterated. Their ballistic missile launchers are being smashed. Their telecommunications now has been pretty much wiped out. Their missiles are being depleted. Stockpiles are now down to about 30%. The regime has been decapitated. This is now an absolute. We are dismembering the leadership, and the Iranian the Navy is almost gone. They during the break they sunk another ship. Our forces and the Israelis sunk another big warship. So if basically Iran's Navy is no more. And to show you, and I'm going to get to Vince in a second, Vince, I'm sorry, I just want to give this quick update. We have so decimated the Navy, which is to me stunning in such speed, that Trump now has ordered our ships to patrol the Strait of Hormuz so that oil shipping containers can now pass through the Strait of Hormuz from Saudi Arabia, from the Gulf nations, to keep the world's oil supply going, to minimize these price shocks that are expected in the oil markets, to keep the price of oil from going too high. So we are watching now the Iranian regime start to collapse in front of our eyes. Now, I want to go back to Vince in Germany. Vince, two questions for you. Number one, you said you don't trust Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner. If you see him anywhere, you run as fast as possible. Let me play you the cut, and then I want to get your reaction. This is what Witkoff on Fox said, that he said forced Trump's hand into bombing the Iranian regime. Witkoff claims that they could make 11 bombs and that they could do all of this. They could enrich uranium to weapons grade in about a week to 10 days. Roll cut 6B, Mike.
They have 10,000, roughly, kilograms of fissionable material. That's broken up into roughly 460 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, another 1,000 kilograms of 20% enriched uranium, and the balance is at 3.67. They manufacture their own centrifuges to enrich this material. So there's almost no stopping them. They have an endless supply of it. The 60% material, Sean, can be brought to 90%. That's weapons grade, in roughly 1 week, maybe 10 days at the outside. The 20% can be brought to weapons grade inside of 3 to 4 weeks.
Vince, what do you make of Witkoff's claim that the Iranians were bragging to them that they can produce 11 nuclear bombs and that they had enough enriched uranium at 60%, you take it up to 80, 90%, it becomes weapons grade, that they could do this in 7 to 10 days, meaning in 7 to 10 days, they could put a nuclear device on a ballistic missile, and before you know it, the Ayatollahs have the bomb. According to Witkoff, we had no choice. It has to be now or never. What say you?
Well, Jeff, if they're saying they have enough for 11 bombs, then that means they have 11 bombs, which means that they already have them ready to go. So either they're the dumbest poker players in the history of poker, or Witkoff is lying. Witkoff, the guy that hung out with Epstein on Epstein Island, was like, what, neighbor 2 houses down in New York City? Like buddies with Epstein, seen running around with Epstein, which we know is an Israeli intelligence asset. We know that now, no doubt about it. Okay? I mean, look at the source. So like I said, Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, all right? Israeli agents, Mossad, probably, in all likelihood. Anyway, moving on. Back to Turkey. The dirty little secret is they want to topple Erdogan. The Israelis want to topple Erdogan. They think that that's in their interest to, create chaos in Turkey, topple Erdogan, maybe create a Kurdistan in the east. I mean, this is all like a reshuffling of, Sykes-Picot or the Balfour Declaration, where they basically carved up the Middle East and decided after the Ottoman Empire, this is what we're going to have. I mean, these aren't like natural borders here. They're just kind of drawn borders. It's like you've got tribes that move across these borders. It's very tribal in the Middle East, even to this day. You know what I mean? These people are just playing with fire. They think they can control it. You know what I mean? We need to stop with meddling in people's internal affairs. We just need to stop.
Vince, thank you very much for that call. So you've heard Vince. He's not optimistic. He thinks it's going to end badly. Agree, disagree. 617-266-6868 is the number. Larry in Arkansas. Thanks for holding, Larry, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Jeff, before I get started, we need to hold a moment of silence for the ghetto Barbie and the Bond villain. Both Crockett and Crenshaw lost their primaries.
Yep,
you know
that's
how
right.
sad we are.
Dan Crenshaw, I mean, it was 16 points, Larry. Sitting congressman, that rhino, and he got his rear end handed to him. I mean, he was destroyed, absolutely destroyed. And Crockett, with her big mouth, she also took a beating yesterday. So, and I think Ken Paxton now may pull this thing off. We're going to have maybe a true MAGA senator from Texas. So we shall see. Again, I don't want to be premature about this, but last night was some very good news for us in terms of the primaries. No question. Larry, I've got to ask you, I asked this of Vince. He's a veteran. He served. I think you're going to take a different point of view, obviously, than Vince. Vince is very much opposed to the war here. But Larry, as a military man, as a man, in fact, from the Air Force, and our Air Force is performing spectacularly right now. just before you get into the actual war itself and what's going to happen next, how impressed have you been with both the United States and Israeli military? They have hit nearly 2,000 targets. They have wiped out the Iranian Navy, most of their ballistic missile launchers, their military infrastructure, their air defenses have been demolished. Iran now is fighting this war blind, deaf, dumb. They're running out of missiles. Militarily, this is looking like one of the greatest defeats in the history of warfare. Larry, am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. And all due respect to Vince, but yeah, I'm going to come at this from a completely different angle. This has affected me since I was 9, when they took over and took hostages for 444 days. I was 9, but both my brothers were well into their military careers when that all went down. So that was a daily thing in my family, watching, seeing if, my brothers were going to have to go deal with something. So we've been waiting for this for 47 years. Now, in reality, I don't care what the media says, I don't care what Hollywood says, the military are not hell-bent on war. They're actually opposed to it, but they understand sometimes it's necessary. And in my opinion, this is necessary. Now, there's a difference between regime change and nation building. We're trying to topple an evil regime, but I can't tell you how many times I've heard Trump say it's going to be up to the Iranian people. He's like, I'm giving you this opportunity. It's now up to you. We don't know if we can do this again if you choose wrong, but you guys are going to have to choose. And you're right. It's brilliant. Another perspective is, did you happen to catch the footage of these Air Force pilots that were accidentally shot down? And I'm using air quotes, accidentally. And the fear when the locals approached them, one with a machete, not knowing at first it was an American civilian or a citizen, a military person.
Yeah, you're talking about the 3 F-15s that were shot down in Kuwait, correct, Larry?
Yeah, there's no other. When you're a special unit or a combat unit, you've got your brothers there, right? Your brothers in arms are there to back you up if things go sideways. Pilots, you saw the video, which is very rare to see. A shot down pilot is by themselves. And when you're dropping in, I want you to think about that. When you're dropping in that parachute, all that pilot's going through his head is, or her head in this case, I hope whoever finds me is friendly. That's fear.
Well, and what was remarkable, Larry, is, I did see that footage. It was incredible. And you're right. Initially, our pilots, our guys were like, oh no, I think I'm going to get killed. And initially the Kuwaitis were like, they thought they were Iranians, right? They weren't sure. And they're mad because the Iranians keep firing indiscriminately these missiles into Kuwait. And in fact, they've actually killed Kuwaiti civilians. So again, they're turning the Sunni Arab world against them, the Persian Gulf nations against them. I've never seen something so stupid as what the Ayatollahs the mullahs are doing now. But let that go. But then when they realize, oh, you're an American, because, they don't speak English, right? But they go, oh, American. They finally figured it out. Then he wanted to shake the pilot's hand. And he said, come. Everything's going to be okay. Come. Everything's going to be okay. Incredible. I'm telling you, incredible footage. Larry, regime change, what do you think is going to happen? I know you don't have a crystal ball, but what's your sense of this? The Iranian military is crumbling in front of our eyes. They're being shredded. The leadership is dying off. More people are getting killed all the time. As Trump said, after a while, I don't know if we can even pluck somebody to try to replace, the leadership, because they're going to all be dead. Are we going to see a full overthrow of the mullah regime? Or do you think, like in Venezuela, something intact will remain, but it'll be very different, obviously much weakened, and just a neutered, gutted regime that will be impotent for the next 10, 15, 20 years? What say you, Larry? What's the end game? How does this thing end now?
Like I had said, I do believe that the Iranian people are going to see this opportunity to get the government they want. Like you said, it was a stroke of brilliance to involve the Kurds, arm them to help take over. Now, I agree with Vince on the fact that our history has not given these factions much hope that we're going to back them. I think people are starting to see on an international stage, Trump isn't a politician in that sense. You know, the last uprising in Iran was under Obama, I believe, and, you know, he left them hanging in the wind. And that's so I'm sure they're leery, but they're optimistic. You know, you see the footage, which the mainstream media does not want to show you, of the Iranian people dancing and praising Trump for this. And I honestly, like I said, I think that's all Trump's goal is. He doesn't want to, you know, take over. He doesn't want to have a nation build like Bush and everybody else. He wants to give them an opportunity to change their own government, and in turn will keep us at peace, because that eliminates the threat. Because, you know, for whether people admit it or not, for 47 years, when you have the group of people in charge saying death to America, set aside Israel, death to America, you got to at one point start taking it seriously. What I also like, sir, is one of the bigger losers in this is China. China is getting, well, I think 90% of their oil, 90% of Iran's oil, and 80% of Venezuela's oil, and we just cut both those countries off.
And to me, the other thing that I think is very telling, and that's why I think the Iranian regime is now really on the ropes. Yeah, rhetorically, the Chinese are defending Iran, but militarily, they're not doing a thing. I mean, the Chinese are backing down completely. The Russians can't help Iran because they're bogged down in eastern Ukraine. So again, it's just rhetoric coming from Moscow because they can't do much. But you're right. Look, China has been badly hurt by this. Both Venezuela and Iran were two key clients, and they didn't bail out Maduro, and they're not bailing out the Ayatollahs. So that shows to you that the Chinese intelligence is basically telling Beijing the Ayatollahs are going down, at least the regime is going down, that the Iranian military cannot stand up much longer against this massive onslaught. So Trump has this will define his presidency. Make no mistake about it. This war will define his presidency. And I think now you can see it on him. He wants to make sure the end game succeeds, because now the end game is everything. Larry, thank you so much for that call. I really appreciate it. In other words, he wants to get a stable government if they're going to, and to replace the current Ayatollahs. He's got to have that, because if the thing does break apart, or if there's, God forbid, a civil war, or the country becomes completely destabilized, or there's anarchy and chaos and a vacuum, well, then the operation is going to look very, very different, obviously. So that's why, who the successor will be, what the next government will look like, who will be in that government, it's almost everything. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree? I don't know. Maybe you disagree with me. I'd love to hear from you. Let me ask all of you this. Do you think the war is going well? Has it exceeded your expectations? And is Trump now going for the knockout blow? Are we now on the verge of a potential massive military victory? 617-266-6868. Dave in Ohio. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Long time no talk. So
welcome, Dave.
Every expert has been wrong on everything regarding Trump, what he thinks, what's going to happen. We've been seeing it now in the mainstream media for over a decade now. Just wrong. They're looking at the small picture. You need to look at the big picture. You just alluded to it with the China and Russia not doing anything, cutting off the oil. But look at this. Where did Iran get a lot of their technology for their defenses? Where did Venezuela get their technology for their defenses? China, Russia, ineffective against what we have. That's a wake-up call to China. And as far as the power vacuum, I would say it's pretty unpopular right now to be a Muslim extremist in Iran. 80 mullahs get together to elect a new supreme leader, and they got smoked. You think they're going to be congregating anytime soon to elect the next guy? Or who would even want to be the next guy?
Well, so, Dave, in answer to your question, believe it or not, in all that bombing and death and destruction, they did elect. They had an interim supreme leader. It was this council. I don't want to bore you with all the details, but it was a 3-person council, and there was an interim supreme leader after the death of the supreme leader Khamenei. They've now chosen a successor. There is now a successor. It is Khamenei's oldest son. His name is Mojtaba Khamenei. So same last name, different first name. The father was Ali. This guy is Mojtaba, Mojtaba Khamenei. So he's the eldest son. He is a hardliner. If anything, he's even more hardline than his father. He is closely connected to the Iranian Secret Service and to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, which are the most fanatical supporters of the regime. In fact, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps insisted that it only be him, Mojtaba Khamenei, and no one else. So as things stand right now, even though their military is being degraded, destroyed, dismantled all around them, they're not softening. The regime, if anything, is hardening. And Mojtaba Khamenei, the moment they made this guy supreme leader, death to America, death to Israel, and what did he say? We fight to the bitter end. So, this, and apparently, look, I think there's some popularity. I don't think I think what we're seeing now is, yes, there's opposition to this regime, no question, Dave. But I still think there's still enough people out there who are Islamists that they're willing. Remember, the military hasn't defected yet. The mid-level military hasn't defected yet. Once they start to defect, it's over. But so far, they're hanging on. Final word to you, Dave.
Well, that guy's 57 years old. He's so I know what his history is. The thing is, it hasn't even been a week. All right? You look at Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. Their funding just got cut off. So let them fire off all their supplies, their weaponry. They're not going to get replenished. Iran's not going to get replenished. As soon as they start running out of weapons, and you'll see a change. It hasn't even been a week yet, Jeff.
Well, Dave, you nailed it. They're already running out of weapons. Look, the heart and soul of their military are the ballistic missiles, and they're down to 30% of their stockpile, and we're in the 4th day of the war. I've got more breaking news. Oh my God, are these people stupid that run that regime in Iran? Oh, I mean, I knew the Ayatollahs were primitive, but holy mackerel. Okay, anyway, before I get to that, and obviously your calls, Wednesday, 7:20-ish, you know what that means. Kuhner's call log. Take it away, Mike. Sorry, truth or troll. What am I saying? What am I saying, Mike? Mike, truth or troll? Take it away, Mike.
And now, America's favorite game show, where you get to decide on the Kuhner Report. This is Truth or Troll.
Today's entry for Truth or Troll comes from President Trump speaking at a rally in Corpus Christi, Texas over the weekend, when he yet again brings up the possibility of getting a third term as president.
Been here 1 year. Think of it, 1 year, a little bit more than 1 year now. Time flies. Time flies. Maybe we do one more term. Should we do one more term? Do one more term. One more. Well, we're entitled to it because they cheated like hell in the second one. We would actually be entitled to it.
I swear he cracks me up. He's so funny. I got to tell you that.
He is really funny. I mean, all right, so he says he's entitled to a third term as president now. It's not just a possibility of running. Now he's entitled to it. So what do you think, Jeff? Is he trolling or is he being serious?
Both, as usual. I think he does think, well, look, we all know they stole the election in 2020. So he figures, you know what? You really screwed me by stealing that election. Damn it, I'm owed a third term. So I think part of it is obviously he's serious, but, he's trolling because he's not going to go for a third term. He's still got, 3 years left in this term. He's going to be, 82, 83 in 2028. And he said privately, repeatedly, no, 2 terms is more than enough. That's why I think he's trying to do so much so fast, because he feels like the clock is running, the clock is ticking. And so he's got a lot on his plate and he wants to get it all done before he leaves in 2028. So there's a lot of truth to it in terms of, I think, really, if you're sitting in a living room with the guy and he's like, hey, they screwed me, and boy, they screwed me good. They stole that thing right under my nose. So, yeah, I'm entitled to a third term. But in reality, is he going to go for a third term? No. So ultimately, I would say troll. Some truth, as usual, but ultimately trolling. And he loves to troll the left because every time he does this, they go apoplectic, semi-heart attack. Hey, you see? Dictator! Dictator! He's a dictator! He gets a rise out of him every single time. But look, that's that's me. I want to hear from you. Is Trump, when Trump says he's entitled to a third term, is he A, telling the truth, B, trolling? A, truth, B, trolling. You can vote on our webpage, WRKO.com/Kuhner, WRKO.com/Kuhner, Kuhner, and you can also vote via X, my handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhner. Okay. So, you're not going to believe this. The mullahs now, and that's what I mean, there's something happening in Iran. It's almost like it's on autopilot. I said chicken without a head. It's sort of like they had orders or instructions that they gave to these mid-level people. Should the supreme leader be taken out? Should our top military leaders and generals be taken out? Here are the countries we want you to target, and just press these buttons and launch the missiles. Because it's mindless. It makes no sense whatsoever. They have just fired several missiles into Turkey. Turkey. What the hell does Turkey have to do with any of this? So they're firing missiles into Turkey, and NATO has now gotten involved, and they shot down those missiles. So the only maybe semi-ally that the mullahs had were the Turks. Not because they care for the Iranians, but because they fear, the Kurds now getting more rights should they overthrow the Ayatollahs, the Kurds being armed by Trump as part of an internal military operation to overthrow the mullahs. So they fear that maybe the Kurds now are going to get more rights and more power. Well, now they've just alienated Erdogan, the strong man of Turkey. Okay, lines are jammed. I want to go right back to the phone lines. I just want to keep everybody aware of what's happening. in Congress, the Democrats, again, are showing just how anti-American and treasonous they are. And I want you to just stand back and think about this. Again, whatever your position on this war is, our troops are now engaged. I want all of them to come back alive. We've already lost 6 service members. I don't want to lose any more. And, I want this war, God willing, to be over as quickly as possible with a decisive victory. I don't want to see this become a protracted quagmire. And I certainly don't want to see our troops being undercut in the middle of this war when they're literally putting their lives on the line. Well, that's what the Democrats now are trying to do. So they are gearing up for a vote on the War Powers Resolution. They are going to try to pass a War Powers Resolution that would effectively tie Trump's hands in his ability to finish this war, to conclude victoriously in this war. I find it incredible that we're only 4 days in, okay, and by most bombing campaigns that we've done, Obama bombed Libya for 7 months. 7 months. Not 4 days, not even 7 days, hell, not even 7 weeks, okay? 7 months. And Nancy Pelosi said he doesn't have to go to Congress. Literally, we have her on tape. He doesn't need congressional authorization. What does he need congressional authorization for? Bill Clinton bombed Serbia to detach Kosovo, the cradle province of Serbia, away from the Serbs. And that was a 78-day bombing campaign. Not 4 days, 78 days. There was no approval from Congress. But now, no authorization from Congress. They never said War Powers Resolution. They never said tie your hands, tie your hands, tie your hands. So what I find incredible is now, and it's all, it's coming out. We've depleted and destroyed their Navy. We've obliterated their air defenses. We're smashing their ballistic missile stockpile. Their military infrastructure, command and control is being absolutely dismantled. Their political leadership is completely decapitated. Okay, the regime is unraveling, and the military in particular, the Iranian military, is being smashed to pieces in front of our eyes. Again, I don't want to seem overconfident. I don't want to jump the gun. But this thing could be over by the end of the military part of it. Could be over by the end of the week. If they continue to be this successful. We have complete air superiority, air dominance. We control now the skies of Iran. They can't touch us. And now it's just pound, pound, pound. And the Iranians are running out of missiles. The regime is breaking down. They are blind, deaf, and dumb. Militarily, politically, they can't even communicate with each other. So I want you to think about this. We're on the cusp of finishing off the Iranian military and maybe the regime. Okay, that's an open question. But the military, the Iranian military now, it's like a boxing match. Another round or two, and this one, he's going down for a knockout. He's going to get knocked out. Okay? And now the Democrats basically want to stop the fight. Now the Democrats are trying to push a War Powers Resolution in order to tie the president's hands right as we're on the verge of finishing off the Iranian military. In other words, they want to stab our troops in the back, sabotage and undermine our military as our men and women are being deployed and putting their lives on the line. And again, it's all in this rabid hatred for President Trump. Trump derangement syndrome on steroids. They hate him so much, they'd rather that they cost us the war and get Americans killed and utterly, literally undermine and sabotage our military as our troops are fighting, than just shut up and say, you know what? We never asked this of Clinton. We never asked it of Obama. We never asked it of Biden. We never asked it of Bush 41. We've been letting presidents do this now for I don't know how many decades. You want a declaration of war if we're going to put in ground troops, okay. But now we may not even need to put in ground troops because it looks like the Kurds and others are going to be armed and they'll be the ground troops. No. Now they want a war powers resolution. I don't think it's going to pass. Thank the Lord. Thank the Lord. But that they would even consider doing this. It's treason. It's treason. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Lou in Rhode Island. Thanks for holding, Lou, and welcome.
Yeah, hi. Good morning, Jeff.
Hi,
I've been listening to you all week, I think first of all, let me just preface this by saying I don't think that President Trump was saved in Butler, where he turned his head and just had a shot in his ear for nothing. Okay, I think there's something bigger going on here. I don't think Trump is Bush or Clinton or Obama or anything like that. I think he honestly is dedicated fully to the United States of America and its best interests. So, I mean, and the thing I really want to talk about today is there are actually two wars going on right now. It's the war in Iran is one thing, but it's reflective of another war that's going on. And I think you're getting into this all week long. First, I'd like to talk about the domestic war that's going on now. It's that we have this group. It's sort of like a conglomeration. It's the left wing of the Democrats and all these radical leftists, combined with the jihadists, who are all very well funded. And if you want to know the mindset, I'm going to take a little aside for a second. If you want to know the mindset of the left, all you have to do is read the eulogies in the Washington Post and the New York Times of the Ayatollah. I think you should read them on the air to get to know how the left thinks about the Ayatollah and the Iranians. I mean, in glowing terms about this guy. And also, Tucker Carlson says, oh, he was just a religious leader. I mean, the woke left, the woke right, and the jihadists are trying to combine to destroy MAGA in America and divide the American people. And it's very easy to see. It's not only just with this, it's with Candace Owens trying to tear down TPUSA. It seems like an organized effort. A lot of it is funded by the Qataris and the Muslim Brotherhood, and you can actually see how they're working along with the left to try to tear down Trump and tear down MAGA, divide America, and install what gets installed is the radical leftist idea of America. No right wingers ever going to get installed in here. It's just the Mondami-tights and all the radicals. As a matter of fact, let me just say this now. I really want to get to my point. Mondami gave a speech at a mosque. And it's his usual BS speech. And then after that, the imam comes in there and gives his talk, but he gives it in Arabic. And the talk in Arabic says, we've got to kill the infidels. But he doesn't think that anybody's going to interpret what he says. But that was there, and that's what got put out. So this is what's going on. This is the fight in the West that's going on, and the fight in America that's going on now. A combination of ingredients to try to take down Trump and take down MAGA and divide America and put the left in. And it's one thing that they do want, the Qataris and all these radicals want, they want the Democrats in, and they want them in for one reason only. Open borders, let all these refugees come in America, let them all vote and take over the United States of America.
You nailed it. And look, Tucker Carlson is wrong. He's wrong again on this. Look, I can't stand the Ayatollah. He was a genocidal, mass-murdering monster. He was. But look, I have to call it the way I see it. He was the leader of the Shiite Muslims. Whatever we think of him, I'm just telling you, it's a fact. He wasn't just some religious leader. He was the supreme leader for Shia Islam, which has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of followers, not just in Iran, around the entire world. They are very angry at his death. They're very bitter. Okay, just very, very quick because I want to go back to the phone lines. So, look, whatever we think of Shia Islam, I mean, it's there. It's a potent force. It's got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of adherents, not just in Iran, but around the world. Sunni Islam is a much bigger variant of Islam. That's the more dominant one. But Shia, and there is a big split between the Sunnis and the Shia. They're historical rivals. Actually, they often slaughter each other. They're at war with each other. But the fact is, there are many Shia Muslims. For example, in Pakistan, they are mourning the death of Ali Khamenei. In Iraq, there is a huge Shia population in neighboring Iraq. They had a huge funeral for Ali Khamenei in the town of Najaf. Now, why am I mentioning this? The Trump administration is aware of the fact that the death of Khamenei, it's a little different theologically, but think taking out the Pope. Okay, it's not quite a perfect analogy, but imagine, the Pope being taken out in a military operation and the impact that would have on Catholics around the world. So they know that this has caused a lot of rage, a lot of anger, tremendous frustration, bitterness, hostility. And so what they're afraid of is that now there's going to be a call across the entire Shia world of a holy war against the West, but especially against the United States. And one of the big fears, and I know that Tulsi Gabbard is very concerned about this, Kristi Noem, very concerned about this, is that under Biden, and that's why to me what he did is so unforgivable, Hezbollah operatives, we know, penetrated our wide open southern border. And Hezbollah is a proxy of Iran. They are a Shiite organization, radical, terrorists, extreme, and in fact, they're launching missiles now. As I speak to you, Iran and Hezbollah are launching missiles into Israel. Many of them are being intercepted. A few, however, are landing. But the point being, Hezbollah is operating sleeper cells within the United States. Now, we're not going to know about this, but I'm like 99.99999% sure arrests have been made, plots have been disrupted, and they're keeping their eye on clerics like the one that Lou in Rhode Island talked about, who pals around with Mamdani, and in Arabic, in sermons, is calling for a holy war against the infidel. So what I'm trying to say is it's another reason why Trump would love to see a lightning war. Why I frankly want a lightning war. End this thing quickly and decisively. But quickly. Because the longer it goes on, the worse it may get. Now, furthermore, it's another reason why, and this is why people are saying, well, why isn't Trump calling for just a clean regime change break? Like just overthrow the Ayatollahs completely. He doesn't want to alienate the Shia world. He's keeping this in, it's one of the pieces on the chessboard. So ideally, and that's what he talked about yesterday, he said the Venezuela model. He goes, we took out Maduro, but I kept most of the regime. A, for stability reasons, but B, it prevents civil war, it prevents anarchy, it prevents refugees from pouring across the border. In other words, you don't upend the entire society and the entire order. He would love to find, and I'm putting this in air quotes, a moderate cleric, a moderate Shia mullah who's semi-sane, who would be willing to get rid of the enrichment, get rid of the nuclear program, get rid of the ballistic program, stop funding all of these terrorist groups and proxies across the Middle East, more open to having other views in the government or open up Iranian society, but still keep the Shia world happy that they're not going to be overthrown in some kind of a secular revolution. Why? Because he's trying to avert a holy war. So, there are different factors here. So that's why everything ultimately now is going to fall on the end game. What happens after the military campaign is over? If it goes well, the operation will be a smashing success. If they can't find a suitable or stable replacement, then we can see trouble. Then that's why Trump now is looking for the right political successor. 617-266-6868. Now, very quick. When regimes fall, this is the group to look for. The top leaders hang on to the bitter end. The followers, the fanatical, the Hitler and the bunker types, the fanatics who support these, whatever, it doesn't matter if it's a Marxist regime or a fascist or a Nazi regime, or in this case, an Islamo-fascist regime. The fanatics are the fanatics. They're the bitter enders. They will be with them to the end. It is the mid-level group. Captains, majors, corporals, those people in the military, in that middle stratum, the ones who, how do I say this, have to transmit orders to the, to the grunts, to the, to the soldiers on the ground. When they start to defect, then the regime collapses very quickly. So far, it's only 4 days, but the majors, the corporals, the captains, they are not defecting from either the military or the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. So this is why the regime is still holding, because that middle stratum hasn't defected. When the middle stratum defects, it's over. I'm telling you, then it's over. Then the regime is bleeding, and you can't staunch that bleeding. You just can't. So that now it's only 4 days, but militarily, this may all be moot, because at the speed and the success and the destructive efficiency that both our military and the Israeli military is proceeding, there may not be anything left to protect the mullahs and protect the regime. I've never seen anything like this. And remember, Trump, and he's not bluffing, and Rubio is not bluffing. They said, you don't understand. The most punishing part of our campaign, that's the next phase. That's going to start now or any hour now. In other words, we're going to deploy weapons that we have never deployed before. And people are wondering, like, what, a laser? Like, I mean, seriously, how much harder can you hit them? Well, apparently they're going to hit them a hell of a lot harder. So, watch, because this regime can fall now and fall very fast. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I got a message from Mark on Messenger, and I just want to pass it off to all of you. And I think he sums up the feelings of many in this audience. Jeff, please read this. I have to admit, I was a little skeptical with this military campaign, but now that I see what planning has gone into this, what precision, what genius by our president and our military, this was just not a willy-nilly attack. It was very carefully planned out. And Jeff, I'll never forget this. When the media asked Joe Biden and Kamala Harris what their message to Iran was after October 7, 2023, whether they were going to attack Israel, Biden's answer was one word: don't. Yet when Trump was asked about what his message to Iran was, he said, quote, I can't say all of this because there's some swearing, I'll bomb the crap out of them. And that's why Trump is the greatest of all time. And then Mark adds, there will be regime change, but now it's up to the Iranian people on how they go about doing it. Mark, thank you for that call. Andy in Milford, thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Andy!
Jeff, I think it's important to keep in mind what we've had with Iran is by definition a long-standing geopolitical problem that has been ever since the Iran hostage crisis in 1979. And in Trump 1.0, we had a real shot at solving this long-standing geopolitical problem in a non-kinetic way. Because if you remember, in Trump 1.0, President Trump cut off all the money to Iran. He had them isolated economically. And a lasting peace was starting to take hold in the Middle East. And it's clear the reason why is that the Iranian mullahs and their terrorist proxies all throughout the Middle East were broke. But then the 2020 presidential election was stolen. Once the illegitimate Biden regime was installed, the first thing they did was restore the money flow to Iran. Terrorism from that point exploded. And this, in my opinion, is a big part of what enabled October 7th. So that history up to this point is important. I myself, I voted for peace in the last presidential election. The last thing I wanted was war with Iran. But given that history and given that the trigger's been pulled, we're committed to finishing this thing and finishing this thing decisively. Now, Jeff, if that economic pressure that was achieved in 1.0 had been maintained, what's clear what would have happened is the Iranian people would have been able to rise up with the green movement and get rid of the mullahs on their own. And I think now that Trump's actually talking about arming the opposition, this is our off-ramp in this thing, Jeff. If the Iranian people are able to rise again with a green movement, I say this time arm them. And, of course, we'll have to have a national debate about whether that's right or wrong. But I'm nervous, Jeff, about us appointing or imposing a new leader in Iran, because this has to be the Iranian people's baby. They have to be the ones to decide this. And keep in mind, Iran is mainly Persian. So it's even more important that the Iranian people decide this for themselves.
Oh, excellent. I mean, Andy, as always, absolutely superb analysis. And I think, to be fair to Trump, I think that's one of the reasons why he's very reluctant to go with the crown prince. You know, Reha Pahlavi. He likes him. He's met him or whatever, spoken to him on the phone. And look, he's an impressive man. And you can tell he loves his people. He's a true king in the best sense of the word. I mean, I'm a small R Republican. I don't care for monarchy, but just let that go for a second. He's a cultured man. He speaks multiple languages. He knows Iran very well. He knows, and, he gave a very moving speech where he told the non-Persians in Iran, he said, please know that if I come back to power, and, he's speaking to the Kurds, but to others, saying, I know you're not Persian, but I want you to know you will have full equal rights in my Iran. You will have cultural preservation. I will protect your culture, your language. You will be equal to, the Persians. So, I think in many ways he's a very humane man, in some ways different than his father. His father was a much harder man. He was a dictator, and much better than the mullahs, don't get me wrong, but still, he was a strong man. He was a dictator. This guy seems to me very different. He wants to be a constitutional monarch, almost like a figurehead, but kind of unify the country. But I think, to be honest, one of the reasons why Trump is reluctant to go with him is because I think many Iranians, right or wrong, would see him as a puppet of the United States, as you put it, installed from the outside, not from the inside. And that's why Trump is, look, his advisors want him to go with the son of the Shah. They're saying, he's there, he's ready, he's got some kind of support. We don't know how wide, but there's certainly a base of support there. And Trump is shaking his head saying, my instincts are saying no. Because then it's going to look like we overthrew the Ayatollahs and then we put in our guy in Tehran. And he's not going to have that kind of legitimacy. And I don't want that. He goes, then we're back to square one. So I think he's looking for someone from the inside. Someone that could get enough support, enough respect, enough legitimacy that, look, to be honest, Trump has even said it. I don't even want someone that's pro-American. I just want someone that's neutral. Basically, I just want someone that's not crazy. That's all. That's all. No nuclear bomb. Don't talk to me about the coming of the 12th Mahdi and the end of days and Armageddon and the apocalypse, as these mullahs do all the time, and the world being consumed in a ball of fire. And that's why, we gotta, we're gonna nuke Israel and, end of times. Like, no nuclear weapons, no nuclear program, no ballistic missiles, no enrichment. You're going to stop funding terrorism. Just be a freaking normal country. That's it. Okay? If you want, be neutral. Fine. Go ahead. Be Switzerland. Go ahead. I'm not saying love me. I'm just saying don't threaten everybody all the time. So I think that's why Trump is, look, Trump's preference is to find, as I said, more of a centrist, if you can be a centrist in that kind of a regime, but someone who's not as radical, extreme, or fanatical. Someone who's willing to say, you know what, I'm a patriot. Because this is now what's becoming clear, Andy. These are Islamists that have been running that country for 50 years. They're not Iranian nationalists or Iranian patriots. And I think that's why, that's been their downfall. If they do fall now, and they're really now on the brink of falling, just stand back objectively. You mentioned the sanctions and how Trump was cutting off money. Now, you've got an economy in crisis. They have no money. The regime has no money. What did Khamenei do? He took $1 billion and he gave it to Hezbollah last year. Hezbollah. But when they were protesting on the streets just a few months ago, it was cost of living. It was like inflation. They were like, food is too expensive. Gas is too expensive. Bread is too expensive. Like, we can't live like this. His answer, $7 each citizen. That's it. Crumbs. Okay, you all get a $7 increase. And they're like, $7? But you've got billions for Hezbollah, for Hamas, for the Houthis, for every other terrorist group and proxy around the Middle East and the world. Then you have money. Billions more for these missiles. Billions more for the nuclear program while we're freaking starving. And so the Iranian people, to their credit, are proud of their 20 centuries of culture, heritage, civilization, and they should be proud. This goes back thousands of years. It's a great culture, a great civilization, a great people. They deserve a hell of a lot better than these monsters now in Tehran. But these fanatics don't think like that. They think in radical Islamic theology. And I think ultimately that's going to be their undoing. And Andy, let me just say one last thing, my friend. In the end, when the history books are written, again, I don't want to be premature, but it looks like this could be over soon. It was Khamenei that brought down the regime because he made a fatal mistake. His people starved, and all he did was send money abroad. But after October 7, he made the biggest mistake of all. He ordered Hezbollah to launch an all-out attack on Israel. Hezbollah was always Iran's insurance policy. You talk to Israelis. The Israeli media has been open about this. They said, well, we don't want to attack Iran. Why? Because to attack Iran, we have to go all in. Okay, every fighter jet, every missile, everything we have, we're going to have to empty our storage. Okay, we're going to have to empty everything we have. But if Hezbollah attacks with 150,000 ballistic missiles, and that's how much Iran supplied them with, they go, well, we'd be defenseless. Israelis would be slaughtered. He told Hezbollah to attack after October 7th. Israel eventually defeated them. It took about a year and a half, but they defeated them. Now their insurance policy was gone. Now it was just Iran alone. And Iran alone cannot stand up to Israel and the United States. And that was Khamenei's fatal mistake. 617-266-6868 is the number. Just an exclamation point. I want to go to the phone lines, but this is from Larry on Messenger. And I think, it's such a simple point, but it's so true and so penetrating. And it goes to the Khamenei, the late supreme leader, and how this is his war. He's the one that made fatal mistake after fatal mistake after fatal mistake. And now they're on the verge of losing everything. I mean, the whole regime, the whole Islamic Republic now, because they just squandered it. They just squandered everything. Well, and now even as they're going down, just to think about how irrational they are. Jeff, can you imagine the thought process of turning the other Arab countries against Israel and the United States by bombing those same countries? Like with 3 question marks. Like, think of the level of the mind, how primitive. Israel and the United States are bombing us. So what's our response? Bomb Saudi Arabia? Bomb United Arab Emirates? Bomb Kuwait? Bomb Bahrain? No, really? Bomb Turkey? Bomb Iraq? Bomb Lebanon? Bomb Syria? Bomb everybody. I mean, they are attacking Israel a little bit. But what I'm saying is, so I bomb all these other countries, our neighbors. Oh, that's really going to show them. That's really, oh, boy. I mean, guys, this is brilliant. Who thought of that one? I mean, you can't make this up. You literally can't make this up. They're going down, and they're going down hard. 617-266-6868 is the number. Dan in North Andover. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Dan's no longer in North Andover. He's now in Arlington.
Dan in Arlington. Go ahead, my friend.
Man, oh, man. Hey, my brother from another mother. I was a little angry with you at the beginning of the week because I honestly think that this started, Jeff, on January 31st, 1979. And I'll never forget this. I was sitting on my grandmother's her house in Billerica, Massachusetts, on her living room floor with a big old green shag carpeting and watching a big old wooden box TV and watching the Ayatollah get on a plane in Paris on a 747 to fly out of Paris. And I said to her, I remember turning to her and I said, that's a bad man. Why are we not shooting down that plane? Now, if a 14-year-old kid, literally a high school freshman from a mediocre high school could think of that, what the hell were we doing as a government? We had the chance. Reagan could have taken him out for what he did taking the hostages. He could have taken out Iran at that point. We was way stronger than them at that point. They weren't building up their military like they've done for the last 50 years. If we could have taken them out after the coal, we could have taken them out after the army barracks in Lebanon. All of those opportunities to take them out, we never took it. So I think we've got to finish this. As much as I hate to see somebody, hate to see us have to go into a war, we've got to take them out. We've got to finish it. And I think they've got to dig real deep to take out all of the true fanatics, because when I look at what we did in Libya and taking out Gaddafi, he was unifying, but he was friendly to us, and we took him out. He was a punk in the 80s, but he grew up.
Well, yeah, you mentioned Libya. Look, and that's the fear, right? The fear is when you have a regime change like we did in Libya, what happened? Well, what came after was worse. The country was destabilized. There was anarchy everywhere, chaos, civil war, and basically Al-Qaeda took over half the country. So it ended up being a disaster. And look, let me ask you this, Dan. That's obviously what Trump is afraid of with Iran. That's why he wants a stable successor government. He's looking for someone who's got enough legitimacy, enough cachet, enough appeal, enough, not, doesn't have to be universally beloved, but enough that, and better than the mullahs. Like he's put in place in Venezuela. So we don't have to be there, put boots on the ground to prop up a government, some kind of an interim government, because then that leads to Iraq and God knows, an insurgency against us. So my question to you is this, Dan, do you believe the regime is going to fall? And can Trump pull one more rabbit out of his hat and get a stable successor government? If he does that, it's the ball game. What say you?
So I honestly think that trying to put in a successor government is going to be next to impossible. I think that the U.S. has taken this stance, obviously, for the last 40 years, is that we are better off fighting a bunch of punks than one major force. So let Iran splinter. Let them kill each other. Let them go to war with each other, and we'll take a back seat and fight off the punks as they come up.
Interesting, Dan. Interesting. So Dan says, and Dan thinks, no, we'll have regime change. The mullahs will be toppled, but then let Iran disintegrate. And as Iran splits apart, you'll see factions emerge, and they'll start fighting among themselves. And we just try to contain it as much as possible. But what you may end up seeing is anarchy, chaos. 617-266-6868 is the number. Roman in Boston. Thanks for holding, Roman, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. It's been a while since I talked to you. I have a couple points. The liberals in this country are disgusting. Chuck Schumer saying yesterday, yes, 3 deaths. He was opining about it. But where was the outrage from the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan for those service members that died? Just the hypocrisy of the left and left that shouldn't be spread. Trump is looking for an imam, a moderate imam, and it doesn't exist. It is an oxymoron. I don't think he's going to get one. They're all waiting for the 12th imam to come. All of them. They're all radicalized. Their government, their religion and their government are one and the same. It's not like Venezuela. So I think that, there is a case for the Shah to be made. It's his birthright. His father was a legitimate king. And he does have some support. He should be looked into deeper. But I don't think Iran is like Afghanistan, where it's as tribal as Afghanistan was once there was just so many tribes against each other. I don't know if Iran's like that. They're mostly Persian, and they're nationalistic, and the problem is that their military, the Iranians, are still there. other civilians, and I do believe this should be organic. We should not have boots on the ground in there. No way. It has to be an organic movement from the Iranians. How do we stop, the boots on the ground that the Iranians have that are there right now? They killed between 30 and 50,000 people last month. So what is the end game to this? I know regime change has to change, and I don't believe in regime change. But, by saying that he wants a moderate mullah is kind of going against the second point as to why he's there, the humanitarian effort.
Well, Roman, no, I hear you. I mean, every point you're making is obviously very logical, very intelligent, very coherent, very reasonable. I'm just telling you what the president's thinking is. This is what he said. This is the term, literally the phrase that he's using. He's the Venezuela model. That's what he calls it, the Venezuela model. He thinks it's a model that works. He says it's working in Venezuela. He wants to apply it potentially in Iran and other places. So he says, look, it's not really, it's regime change, but it's not regime change. It's leadership change. It's changing the composition or the character of the political leadership of a country. So he goes, look, I took out Maduro, but I didn't smash the whole regime. So you don't have, say, what happened in Iraq, as an example, or Libya or other places. He goes, so many of them remain. The regime is still intact. But it's a very different regime. The regime has been moderated. The regime has been modified, right? I mean, the current leadership in Venezuela, it's not what it is under Maduro. There's no question about it. They're more compliant. They're more pro-American. They're more friendly. Now, we're forcing them to. It's done at the barrel of a gun, but it doesn't matter. The regime is a different kind of a regime. So ideally, that's what he would like to have. I think your point is dead on. I think the option there and right now with these mullahs is crazy or crazier. I think that's what you have with this theocracy. Remember, these are not secular communists. That's what Maduro and his regime were. They're Marxist, secular, atheistic communists. And the one thing about communism is they don't believe in the afterlife. These people are the exact opposite. I think that's a reason why so many people in the regime are hanging on against, it defies rhyme or reason, right? It makes, beyond rhyme or reason. You'd be thinking, really, if I were you, I'd say, we're going to submit and where do we sign? No, they want to die for Allah. Like, for them, this is almost like we're dying now in the name of our faith, in the name of Allah. In the name of the coming of the 12th Imam, we're going to paradise, i.e. heaven. Our 72 virgins are waiting for us. So they don't mind to die. They're not afraid to die. It's almost like a death cult. They almost welcome death, martyrdom. So, and by the way, at the funerals that were held for the supreme leader, around the world, not just in Iran, but in Iraq and in Pakistan and other places. That's literally what they're calling him. He's a martyr for Shia Islam. He died a martyr, which means he died a holy man in their faith, guaranteed, eternal life in heaven. So you're not going to find a moderate in that bunch. And that's why I think whether Trump likes it or not, if he wants a successor government, he's going to have to go to the opposition. Now, the problem with the opposition, and Trump openly said this at the presser yesterday. I don't know if you caught it or not, Roman. He said, I don't know the opposition. Meaning, like, I don't have files on them. I don't know who these people are. So can we trust them? Can we not trust them? Are they really competent? Are they not competent? And that's why he said his famous line, we're not going to do all of this to put in somebody who is just as bad or potentially as destructive as the Ayatollahs. He goes, for me, that would be the worst case scenario. So he's looking. He may have no choice and go with the crown prince. We'll see. We're going to have to find out. But that's really now where I think we're going. Is there a possibility for a successor stable government? If there is, this is going to go down in history as one of the greatest operations ever. If not, it could be very messy. And that's always been my fear, Roman, from the beginning. That was my big concern. Not winning the war, but what comes after the war. Because the one thing about us, we have the finest military in the world, no question. We're not good at post-war occupation or post-war scenarios. For whatever reason, we don't have a good track record. So that's always been my concern. So we shall see. Look, to prove your point, look who they elected. This Supreme Council, they got together. Khamenei's oldest son, 56, 57 years old, Mashtab Khamenei. If anything, he's even more radical and crazy than his old man. The old man, one of his policies was try to avoid a direct conflict with Israel. In other words, let our proxies fight Israel on our behalf. This guy is, no, we fight Israel to the death. And he's a complete product of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. So one of the scenarios now, I know this for a fact, that the Pentagon is potentially looking at, is there a dictator in waiting, meaning a military strongman? Is there somebody in the military who maybe is not as fanatical religiously as these ayatollahs and mullahs, who is willing to overturn the regime from the inside and basically almost govern like a military junta or a military dictatorship? More secular, less fanatical, less extreme, and how do I say this? Maybe not pro-American, but not anti-American, and would be willing to kiss away Iran's nuclear ballistic program and stop funding all these terrorist groups. So I know they're even willing to accept an authoritarian military-style government if it's somebody that's semi-secular, i.e. semi-normal, semi-reasonable. Roman, final word to you. Do you think there's somebody there potentially?
There probably is, but like Trump said and like we discussed, we just don't know who they are. We don't know very much about the internal work, and like we know a lot about the internal workings of Iran under the mullahs, but as far as the generals and the people, we really don't. Who next? The only one that comes to my mind is Shah. He has a valid claim to it, but now he's talking about arming the Kurds. And the Kurds are spread out. They're tribal. They're spread out over many countries. And what if they go in and take over? And it just, and then they have a beef with Iraq. And it just doesn't smell right to me, this whole thing of, the operation is fantastic. They couldn't do it.
Yeah, you couldn't do it any better, but that's what I'm saying. It's what comes next. Now, look, they are sensitive to that, right? The Kurds are not Persians. Okay, the Ayatollahs now in serious trouble. Their military is being destroyed right in front of the world's eyes. Their navy obliterated. Their air defenses demolished. Their ballistic missile stockpile is now down to about 40, maybe even 30%. They are swinging wildly, desperately, launching these ineffective and counterproductive attacks on every neighbor they can think of. And now they fired missiles into Turkey, which is technically a member of NATO. And then NATO helped shoot down these missiles. So technically, if NATO wanted to jump in, they have their, invoke Article 5, an attack on one is an attack on all. So I don't know what the strategy here is. Just attack all your neighbors. Make them hate you even more. But anyway, look, it's obvious. The mullahs now, there is no more command and control, or it's been seriously degraded. You have a new supreme leader, doesn't know what he's doing. You have the military leadership has been completely and utterly decapitated. This regime is crumbling in front of our eyes, and their military is being ground into dust. And the question now is, how much longer can the military in Iran hang on? 617-266-6868. Verna in Arlington. Thanks for holding, Verna, and welcome.
Thank you for taking my call, and thank you to everybody there, Kuhner Country. I want to say one thing first, is even though some of us might disagree with your basic take on this, like I remember Monday morning, Dave from Pennsylvania, CJ from Boston, Russ from Boston, Jerry from the Cape, all very nice, and I love the way Russ approached it. And I just want to say, I think all of us are anti-war in Kuhner Country. I would believe that. We're anti-war. We don't want war specifically like the Bushies and the Cheneys. But I do want to say I'm very grateful for what's going on. I know a lot of Armenians. There was a huge Armenian community in Iran as well, and most of them have left, that they were very happy under the Shah. And I just want to ask, where do we go from here, as you keep saying, and it'll be interesting. So as we watch day by day, hour by hour, what's going on, I just want to say I think this is good. I think God is in this. I believe that. That's my personal basic opinion here. But I just want to say that the Persian Iranian people deserve a chance at a better life, at a better way of life. And there are other cultures in Iran, as I mentioned. There's a huge Armenian community, or there was, that has left most of them, and a lot of them are here. But a lot of them love the Shah. So I think this is good. I think Trump is doing good. I think our country, our administration is doing good stuff. They're doing quick, concrete, focused, and I think that they do have an end plan, or at least they have the thoughts about an end plan. And I think that they're doing well. And I just wanted to put that out there. I'm grateful for what's going on here. Thank you.
Verna, thank you very much. Very thoughtful call. Look, no military, as any general will tell you, no military campaign ever is perfect, okay? Because it's war. So there's always mistakes in war. You can never plan for every contingency in war. Every soldier will tell you that. So, there's no such thing as a perfect war. But this is as close to perfection. Now, again, it's early. It's not over. I don't want to start prematurely celebrating. But so far, this is as close to perfection as any campaign I've ever seen. I mean, this is unbelievable. I'm telling you, in many ways, on many levels, we are watching history unfold in front of our eyes. Now, let me just say this. If I was living in Iran, okay, if I was a citizen of Iran, I'd want the Shah back, or son of the Shah. I'd want the crown prince. Because you're right. I think for all of his flaws, and look, he was a strong man. Let's not sweep that under the rug. Many Iranians have bad memories of the Shah. He was a military strongman, a dictator, but he was a secularist, and he was a westernizer. He was a modernizer. You look at pictures of what Iran was like just a year before 1979. Women in bikinis, women wearing Western-style clothes. You should see their cinemas, the theater. They were playing Western music. Western movies. They were listening to Western music. They were driving beautiful cars. The country was quite a prosperous country. They had modern plants, modern factories. I mean, Iran was on the map. There's no question. And he was fair to the minorities of Iran. He was a secularist, but he left them alone. So he was much friendlier to the Christians and to the Jews, I'll tell you this, and to the Kurds than the mullahs were. That I can tell you. So, no, I would take the crown prince in a heartbeat if I were them. But you see, my view of politics is a little different. I don't look for perfection. To me, I love that saying, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And to me, I think the crown prince is much better than the mullahs. So the good it's the good. It's a very good start, and we can rebuild our country with the Shah, or the son of the Shah. So I would take them in a heartbeat. But I'm not them. I'm here. 617-266-6868. Tony in Florida. Thanks for holding, Tony, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff, my fellow patriot. And first, I just want to say, certainly our hearts go out to the fallen men and women of our wonderful, amazing military that lost their lives on our behalf and on this cause. But what an amazing job that they are doing. And you know what? I always feel this way, is President Trump, the greatest president in the history of the world, on display. They have a plan, a solid plan, and they are absolutely annihilating this evil enemy and doing an amazing job with precision and great planning. And this has been planned for a long time. And also, those that oppose it, I mean, look, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I just feel like I've been on board with this since it started. It's the right thing to do. It needs to be done. And it's been, finally, we have a president with the guts to go out and do it. Now, these people have been terrorizing, 47, might as well just say 50 years, terrorizing, the free world. And it's about time someone had the guts to do it. And it is, of course, President Trump. And so just so proud to support him and his cause. His team is amazing. Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, the whole team that he's assembled around him, Witkoff, and everybody. It's just an amazing, it's a dream team. It really is. And really, at the end of the day, I mean, we are completely feared around the entire world, and that's the way it should be. The rest of the world fears us, and no one's stepping out of line. They see what we're made out of. That this president is a doer. He gets things done. He doesn't talk about it. Promises made, promises kept, and he's carrying that forward. And just like President Trump always says, winning, 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 and that's all we're doing. So I think let's all just get behind this cause, get behind our men and women of the military who are going out there risking their lives and their blood for us on a daily basis right now, attacking this evil enemy, and they're just decimating him. There's no fight back. So really what this is a total annihilation, Jeff, and they're not going to stop till the objective is reached. This is going to be fast and decisive. This is not going to be a forever war. President Trump is not all about that. And Pete Hegseth even echoed that in his speech recently, that we're not all about the Iraqs and the Afghanistans and staying out there for years. No, this is not going to happen. This is going to be fast and decisive. Their objective will be reached within days, maybe weeks, but probably not more than a month. I think by the end of March, by Easter at least, I think we're looking at total victory, Jeff. And so proud of everybody, in this cause and what they're doing out there. And let's just get behind our men and women of the military. Let's all fly an American flag outside of our house proudly and wherever we live, and just enjoy it every minute of what they're doing.
Tony,
I feel that way.
Tony, thank you very, very much for that call. Okay, breaking news as Tony was talking to me. Winning. This is unbelievable. Okay, the Pentagon has just announced the crown jewel in the Iranian Navy. It's called the Soleimani. After the General Soleimani that Trump took out, he was their top commander and by the way, he was the top commander of the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. He was really their Patton, their MacArthur, he was their top military guy. And when Trump took him out, if you remember, near the end of his first term, the Iranians later said it was the equivalent of taking out a major city. They've never really, militarily, you can see now in retrospect, they never recovered from that strike by Trump that took out Soleimani. They just, militarily, they never got back to what they were before. But anyway, they named a big ship after him. It is the crown jewel of the Iranian Navy. It has just been sunk. It's at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. It has been sunk. It is finished. It is over. It is a massive blow now to the Iranians. There's no getting around it. So we're watching now a lightning war take place in front of our eyes, and we are watching the utter dismantlement and destruction of the Iranian military, the Iranian Navy, Iranian ballistic missiles, and the Iranian regime. 617, and it's only 4 days. 617-266-6868. Okay, joining me now, as she always does at this time, Dr. Grace, putting liberals in their place. Grace Woto, full disclosure, I married up. She's my better half, my wonderful wife. Grace, I've got to ask you right out of the gate. I don't want to jump the gun, but it looks now like this is turning into a rout, in a sense, almost a humiliation for the mullahs and for the Iranian military. They are being absolutely annihilated, and it's only the fourth day. We are looking at 2,000 targets hit. Their air defense is smashed. Iran now is effectively fighting blind, deaf, and dumb. And the regime may be coming to an end, and it may be coming to an end by the end of the week, which would exceed anyone's expectations. Your reaction?
Thank you so much for having me on. This is a really historic moment. And, you know, my reaction is I could care less. We've seen this movie before. And do you remember in all those years that we lived in Washington, D.C., I came up with this term called mutant speak. People go to Washington, D.C., and they no longer speak clear English. So we were told, we were promised, no new wars. But now, according to the new mutants, no new wars actually means bombing other countries. It's okay if it's short. We were told no regime change. Now we're told that actually is okay if it's only a partial removal of a leader. We were told we're not going to arm Ukraine. Now we're being told, okay, it's okay to arm Ukraine as long as the Europeans pay for it. More mutant speak. We were told no two-tier system of justice. But when it comes to Epstein, okay, the billionaires who are pedophiles, they can get away with it. We were told mass deportations. Now, mass deportations only in the red states. We were told America first. But we have bombed 7 countries: Venezuela, Nigeria, Somalia, Syria, Iran, Yemen, Iraq. We were told no globalism. We have a mineral deal in Ukraine last year. We have now promised to reconstruct Gaza, not just peace in Gaza, but reconstruct it. We have given a security guarantee to Ukraine, a security guarantee to Qatar. And in 2026, Jeff, we're just in March. Venezuela, Greenland was a crisis just a few weeks ago. And now here we are in Iran. And in Iran, there was no preeminent cause. So what do I see here? We have an administration that is full of mutant speak. They do not speak clear English anymore. And many of us who voted for clear policies are getting something completely different. And what we are getting is globalism on steroids. Rubio and Lindsey Graham are running this foreign policy, and they are globalists. They are beaming. They are thrilled. This is not America first. This is not what I voted for. And he's going to have a big problem on his hands because many astute people within MAGA see that there is so much mutant speak going on right now.
Grace, what do you say to the argument that we faced an imminent threat in Iran? As Witkoff said on Fox, he said they were 7-10 days away from breakout, that they had enriched uranium at 60%. They could easily convert it to 80-90%, which would give them the capability to build. He said not 1, not 2, but 11 bombs, 11 nuclear bombs. With the ballistic missile program they had, they could hit Israel. They could even hit Rome, Berlin, Paris, that this would give the mullahs the ability to blackmail the West. And with these crazy mullahs in power, with their fanatical religious ideology, maybe even launch a nuclear war. In other words, Trump had no choice. It was now or never. What say you?
Let me speak in clear English. Baloney. We know it's baloney because they told us in the summer that they had, quote unquote, obliterated, here again, a clear English word, obliterated the nuclear program, and that this was the most magnificent operation. Oh my gosh, we hadn't seen this operation, the greatest of all greatest operations, the most extraordinary because we had obliterated the program. So the two things cannot both be true. And so here I am, a simple citizen of the United States who no longer understands how these people speak.
Grace, in the litany that you laid out, I get the sense from you that obviously you're disappointed in a lot of what Trump has done over the last year and a couple months, that as a Trump supporter, you feel, I think, on one level betrayed. And so my question to you is this. Are we seeing, in your view, is this a different Trump in the second term than in his first term? Do you feel that this is a different presidency? And were you voting for the first term and the second term just seems to be different than the first term and you're not happy about that? I'm just curious, where are you coming at this from?
Well, Jeff, listen, I think that we have to face the facts. We have to acknowledge that the Trump of 2016 is gone. He's gone. He's out of the building. This is a whole new President Trump. Now, I support him on the border. I think that's still the Trump of 2016, and I think he's tough on crime, and that's great. And I think we've had a lot of great victories, especially against the woke culture, especially on abortion. So look, this president is a heck of a lot better than any Democrat and a heck of a lot better than many, many Republicans. However, when I cast my vote with a lot of enthusiasm in 2024, it was not for globalism. And we have to now call it clearly for what it is. There are people who still want to support this administration, fine, because they just trust and believe in him. But we have to speak clear English and say this. You still believe in him, even if he has completely changed the program. But don't tell me that this is not a whole new program. Now, for me personally, this program has already failed. And one of the reasons that we elected a businessman who was supposed to be different was because he was not going to be a globalist. He was not going to be a rhino. But in the second term, something went wrong. Rubio and Lindsey Graham are in his ear. They have transformed his vision of what he is supposed to be doing. He has gone along with them. And we see clearly that someone like J.D. Vance is increasingly less prominent. So what does that tell everybody? But the facts are the facts. You can't bomb 7 countries, and then you can't we're only March, Jeff. It's January, February, March. We're already in the third country here. This is Venezuela, Greenland, and now Iran. This is March 4th. This is a globalist presidency, and it's fine for people to say they still support it, but it is no longer accurate to say that this is anything other than globalism.
Literally 1 minute. What do you think accounts, in your view, for this change that you're seeing in a Trump second term?
Well, Jeff, power corrupts, and our founding fathers always knew this. And I think what's happened in the second term is the president is interested in permanent solutions and a lasting legacy. And those are two very, very dangerous ideas. As conservatives, we don't believe there are permanent solutions because we believe every day we have to fight against original sin. And for a lasting legacy, we all understand that every single day you have to fight for what's right. And a lasting legacy, it's usually the more you go for it, the less you get it because you're overreaching. And so I think that is what is going on. I think he is being pumped. They're telling him, you're going to go down in history as the greatest of all greats. And this is, people fall into this hubris that they're going to do something better than nobody else ever did. And what he doesn't realize is that we didn't vote for that. We voted for the simple businessman who speaks clear English.
And to your view, cuts deals and avoids war. I hear you. Okay, Dr. Grace putting liberals in their place. Grace is not happy. We kind of ran out of time there with Grace at the end. I was going to thank her, obviously, same time, same place next week. for her weekly hit here on the Kuhner Report. But I was like, boy, you're not happy with Trump. I was going to ask her one final question. As I said, we ran out of time. Are you happy with me? I mean, ay. Jeez. Whoa. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of worried. Should I even go home after the show? Boy. Anyway, 617-266-6868. Jeff in Chelsea. Thanks for holding, Jeff, and welcome.
Thank you very much, Jeff. What I'm concerned about is boots on the ground. Senator Richard Blumenthal from Connecticut was talking about the possibility of boots on the ground. He just came out of a secret meeting with Marco Rubio on that subject, and there is the Project for the New American Century, which had an outline to conquer 7 Middle Eastern countries in 5 years, and Iran is last on the list. Now, obviously, it took longer than 5 years to get this done, and I believe there will be boots on the ground. And when this happens, Trump will go down in history as Napoleon, and this will be Trump's Waterloo. The reason why is because Iran is bigger than Texas, bigger than Iraq, bigger than Vietnam, more people in there. Plus, you can have the aid of Russia and China to put in support troops into that region, just like the Korean War, where China was pumping in Chinese soldiers into the Korean War, and you cannot take over a country just by air power. Plus, the Iranians can hide their military and their missiles underground. And this is a 12-round fight. Yeah, we might win a couple of rounds. And if Iran destroys an aircraft carrier, it'll demoralize Americans at home. I see this as being very dark. And also, Trump did not go through Congress to get the approval from Congress to go into war the way it's supposed to be done. What do you think, Jeff?
Well, Jeff, let me ask you this, because Trump is very wary of putting U.S. boots on the ground. And I know this. I got to be careful how I couch this, because when I mentioned it or discussed it on yesterday's show, I'm against boots on the ground, as everybody knows. But many even of his supporters, and of course I'm a supporter, but what I mean is who are completely backing him on this war, even many, they were listening to Kuhner Country yesterday, and they're like, yeah, even those that are backing this operation don't want boots on the ground. So Trump understands that for many, that will be a red line. Many are backing him. MAGA, a lot of MAGA is backing him on this, and they want it to be successful. They want it to be decisive. They want us to be victorious, but they don't want to insert American soldiers, ground forces. If he does that, he's going to be in big trouble. And so he's trying now to arm the opposition in Iran. The Kurds are, in fact, he's spoken to Kurdish leaders, literally by phone. And they're trying to arm them, train them, maybe have them be the tip of the spear to lead the internal opposition to overthrow the mullahs. And so my question to you, Jeff, could the Kurds, could they be our boots on the ground? And if they are, doesn't that square the circle for Trump? What say you? In other words, we degrade Iran's military. Militarily, they're crushed. And then you arm the people, the groups within, the anti-mullah groups within Iran, and they topple the mullahs. And then we don't have to put in our boots on the ground. And it's no longer Napoleon, but it's Churchill or Franklin Roosevelt, or in other words, World War II, where we emerged victorious and having completely conquered our enemies. What say you?
Now, I don't think the Kurds will be enough for the massive Iranian military. Plus, I'm factoring in China pouring in their soldiers, the Russians pouring in their soldiers, because Iran is a client state of Russia and China. And And also, these countries are using more of a gold-tiered base economy, whereas our economy is more of Federal Reserve funny money. So we are very weak. And when those Kurds get exhausted, we're going to have to send in our soldiers sooner or later. I don't go by what they say. I go by patterns of the past. The Iraqi war was air power at first, and then we had to put in boots on the ground. And I could be wrong on that, but I'm just going to throw that out there. And also, too, you have to have a declaration of war from Congress. Every war after World War II has not gone down that pattern of getting an official declaration from Congress. So, and this is with every president, both Democrat and Republican. Again, I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's the way I look
Jeff,
at it.
look, there's no question. Regime change has never been effectuated. Okay, regime change has never been effectuated by air and naval power alone. To overthrow a regime completely, you do need ground forces. That there's no question about that. The question is, will it be our ground forces, or can we muster enough support within the country to lead a military insurgency if we arm them? That's now the question. 617-266-6868 is the number. Nick in Weymouth. Thanks for holding, Nick, and welcome.
How you doing, Jeff? Where we are with today's technology, it is what it is. We can't. Globalism is not a good thing as we look at it, and I don't believe this is globalism. What it is this is technology. The reason that Iran could never beat the United States at their current stage with a limited amount of nuclear whatever is because our technology is much more powerful than theirs. Our resources are much more powerful than theirs. So how do Iranian people like that? One, no religious leaders should be leading any countries globally. If they want to, that's fine. But when you tread on our interests, our people, and our allies, you get what you deserve. Okay? That's the way it has to be. So maybe make it a protectorate like United Arab Emirates, Qatar. I'm not sure if I trust the Saudis, but maybe there are enough countries of Arabic nature or Muslim nature that don't go all the way like Iraq, like Iran has gone, and maybe they perform some sort of a collaborative or protectorate, and they're ace in the hole with someone like the United States who has interests, right? Again, you cannot have a religious sect running a government of the United States. Your religion is personal. You cannot inflict your religion on anybody else, and that's where it's supposed to be. But again, because of technology, we have to share all this misery. Well, one thing is in this United States here, maybe we don't let people of a particular sect of a religion, right, not the entire religion, to come to the United States because that is what their belief is. That is not a religion. That is a cult. It is not unlike the cult of the deep state that we have in the United States. We know what their religion is, right? It's got to be done their way. No. And you're right. Trump is probably the GOAT greatest of all-time American presidents. Everyone was great in their nature. But I tell you, I ain't seen a lot of great presidents in the last 40 or 50 or 60 years. Right. He's certainly, in that era, the modern era, the greatest. The rest were all phonies. Okay. And you're right. They've done this stuff before themselves. With Libya, they took them out. Why? Because they could. Right. But, oh, by the way, when Libya was over, what immediately happened? There were French refineries in Libya. Okay. Doing gasoline and oil. Like it never happened. Like Iraq never happened. Like Libya never happened. That's the way they go. Okay, so, no, yeah, Obama got to do everything he wanted to do. Couldn't beat ISIS, though, could he? Horrible president. Clinton was a horrible president. What he did in Serbia and all that stuff was horrific, right? You don't inflict one person's religion on another person's religion.
I agree, Nick, and I think I don't want to talk about it in the past tense because it's still around. Again, I don't want to be overconfident, but that's the fundamental flaw in the Islamic Republic of Iran. That's the fundamental flaw with the mullahs, is that it's clearly now radical fundamentalist Islam, radical Shia theology that's been running this government and running that regime now for nearly 50 years. And now they're paying a tremendous price. They have made mistake after mistake after mistake, miscalculation after miscalculation after miscalculation. And what I feel bad about is that you have many poor, innocent Iranians who've suffered. They've been brutally suffering and are suffering even now. And they don't deserve this. They're the real victims here. And obviously the proxies that the Iranians have supported, who have killed God knows how many innocent people around the Middle East and around the world. But what is to me now becoming clear, as it appears the rule of the mullahs is coming to an end, is really two things. Number one, and that's why, if you've noticed, the Bills in Sudbury are not calling. The Chris's in Gloucester are not calling. The Bens in North Andover are not calling. Because this is now the end for them as well. These are the people who empowered the Ayatollahs. It was Jimmy Carter that abandoned the Shah and allowed the Ayatollahs to come to power. It was Obama that enabled the Ayatollahs to survive the Green Movement, the massive protests against the regime, who gave them billions of dollars illegally in unmarked bills on cash, on pallets, full of cash, so that the mullahs could continue to fund their terrorist activities all across the region. It was Obama who gave them the path to the bomb with that outrageous deal that he cut with them. What you're seeing now is the end of Obamaism. Obama now is everything that he tried to do in the Middle East is now being utterly repealed and overturned by Trump. And then furthermore, just compare now the two militaries. The military under Biden and the military under Trump. Under Biden, look at the disaster of Afghanistan. Maybe one of the nadir of American power around the world. The low point around the world. Where we left with not just our tail between our legs, and God knows those dead 13 service members, and the Taliban resurging back to power. But look, the images themselves will haunt me for the rest of my life. People clinging to the wheels, to the tires of the final aircraft. And the aircraft is, hundreds and hundreds, in sometimes cases thousands of feet in the air, and these people falling out of the sky to their death. And now the Taliban rampaging across Afghanistan, literally enslaving people, enslaving women, enslaving minorities, reimposing radical Islamic totalitarian rule. And the likes of Bill in Sudbury called in and said this was magnificent on the part of Biden. That they praised Biden. So look at what Biden did with our military. It was dishonor, it was shame, it was defeat, it was humiliation. And in the end, Islamic triumph and Islamic slavery on the people of Afghanistan. And to this day, they have not apologized. Okay, all the liberals who backed Biden in that disastrous decision. Then you look at what Trump is doing. Agree or disagree with the war. This is now one of the greatest military operations in history. The Iranian Navy is gone. Their air defenses obliterated. Their vaunted ballistic missiles, much of them destroyed, their launchers smashed, the Iranian military being shredded right in front of the eyes of the world. Their proxies finished, and the mullahs now on the ropes. That's the difference between Trump and Biden. That's the difference between conservatives and liberals. They empower radical Islam. We crush radical Islam. Bill in Sudbury, right on cue, just called in. Thanks for holding, Bill, and welcome.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, Jeff. Couple of things. I don't like it when the president, and I also don't like it when you call them crazy, okay? Because they don't seem crazy to me.
The mullahs are not crazy? Hold on, you're talking about the mullahs?
They do not seem crazy to me.
They seem rational?
Because, let me tell you, their strategy seems pretty clear at the moment. They're going to try to withstand everything we throw at them while inflicting maximum interruption in the world oil thing to inflict pain at the gas pump across America. And they're going to wait us out. They don't have to beat us, Jeff. Okay? They're just going to withstand it and interfere with the prices at the pump in across America and wait for us to grow tired of it. That doesn't sound like a crazy strategy to me. That sounds like the exact same strategy that worked in Iraq and Afghanistan. Just withstand everything we throw at them and hold on.
You think it's a prudent strategy for them to be launching missiles into Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, literally indiscriminately firing missiles against all of their neighbors?
Yes, notice who they're not shooting at, Jeff. They're not shooting at us. They're shooting at oil, refineries, oil.
No, they're shooting at...
No,
it's unbelievable how you defend the mullahs. You defended the Taliban. You have defended Al-Qaeda. I never thought you could be any lower. So there you have it. Bill's call makes my point. And as I said earlier, look at the Washington Post, read the New York Times. You are not going to believe the sympathetic, warm, almost endearing obituaries that they wrote on behalf of the late Ayatollah, the supreme leader, Khamenei. They love the guy. They supported him. And here you have, I mean, this is a propaganda call. You know, that's the equivalent of a propaganda call. Reminds me of Baghdad Bob in Iraq on behalf of the mullahs. They're not crazy. They're not behaving irrationally. They're actually targeting all these oil refineries. I don't know what refinery he's talking about. This has been widely reported. They're hitting hotels. They're hitting consulates. They're hitting civilian areas. They're hitting civilian neighborhoods. They're lashing out wildly with very little to no military effect whatsoever. Well, they're going to wait us out. Maybe that's their plan. The problem is, wait us out with what? They're not going to have a military left the way these things are going. They just sunk the crown jewel of the U.S. Navy, their warship, the Soleimani. Trump now has already ordered our Navy to patrol the Strait of Hormuz and to then guide all of these oil tankers and escort all of these oil tankers. So what? They don't have, pretty soon they're going to run out of, literally, they're going to run out of ballistic missiles. So they're running out of weapons, and it's only day 4. And everybody is marveling at mistake after mistake, miscalculation after miscalculation. And then here you have a moonbat called a show, which I expected. And like, no, you don't know their strategy. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. They're not irrational. They're brilliant. So, you know, he defended the Taliban. He defended Al-Qaeda. And now he's defending the Ayatollahs of Iran. That's liberalism for you. And let me say the quiet part out loud. Democrats are rooting for the United States to lose. That's what's coloring Bill's and Sudbury's analysis and all these other crazy moonbats. They so want us to lose, especially to see Trump be utterly defeated and humiliated, that they're rooting for one of the most evil regimes in the history of the world. You can't get more sick than these liberals. I'm telling you, you can't. Just when you think they've hit a new low, they hit another low. Jeff in Quincy. Thanks for holding, Jeff, and welcome.
My friend. So here's the deal. Bill's basing.
Touche, Jeff. Touche. Jeff, what do you make of the way the operation is going? And do you think the regime is going to fall?
Yes, it's going fantastic. As a matter of fact, it is going to be in the history books. This is incredible. But more importantly, the outrage machine known as the media. Like, what gives them the right to tell us what to be outraged about? We only have to listen to the mullahs that scream death to America to know that they're there to harm us. You know, it seems crazy to me that these people, like the Bills in Sudbury, which, by the way, the Democrat Party is a domestic terrorist organization and nothing else at this point. They want more dead Americans, and they're cheering for it, like you say. You know, but more importantly, we are playing the Democrat card. The black pill is in the conservative movement right now that don't understand Donald Trump and what he does. And we're far past. We're 5 years into this now. We should all understand what Donald Trump is doing. What better motivation do you have than to say, oh, we're going to leave the mullahs in charge with a new leader to get the people of Iran off of their behinds and get out and take their country back? That's called motivation. And that's
Jeff, I didn't even think of that. Honestly, I did not even think of that. That's a very interesting point. Keep going, Jeff. We got about a minute left. Go.
Yeah, that is the genius of Donald Trump. And the Democrats fall for this, and the liberals fall for this every single time. And now all of a sudden conservatives are falling for this. Every time this guy speaks, he's been proven right. Give me something he's been wrong about. I can't do it. When I go online and see these comments and I post to people, give me one decent piece of legislation Democrats have done for the American people to make the American people's lives easier. And no one can answer the question because there isn't any. You could go from starting the first Civil War so that they could keep their slaves. Then you could roll down to starting the Ku Klux Klan so that because they lost the Civil War. Then you could go to enacting the Jim Crow laws. Then you could go to desegregation in schools, which they were opposed to. Then you could go to the 1960s civil rights movement.
Oh, yeah, you're on fire. Jeff, you're absolutely on fire. Look, we're going to be following this, obviously, very closely. They are pushing for a war powers vote on the war powers resolution today. We'll see if they actually vote on it or tomorrow.